gonna leave you to it.
It's a great day! My name is Joshua Awesome, and you are welcome to this new episode of Mind Your Mind, the podcast. Now, my guest is a very special guest, and you possibly would say, Joshua, you always say that. Why? Everybody is special. That's the truth. And so I am grateful and humbled, first and foremost, for my partners and friends at OrganoGold. Of course, they bring the treasures of the earth to the world. And in this podcast episode, my guest is trying out the Supreme. Now, it is supreme in every way because, of course, it has an infusion of Ganoderma lucidum, which is the secret sauce that makes this brand's product line unique. Has ginseng in it. And if you've never tried it before, it also has maca powder. So hopefully, he will have a supreme level of awareness and be able to bring to this conversation everything that is at the back of his mind. I'm honored to have you with us, Mr. Patrick Shields.
Good to see you again, man.
It is an honor to have your distinguished presence here. Thank you so much for honoring us with your presence.
No, thanks for the invitation.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you thinking of me, and let's see what trouble we can get into.
He says trouble, but here is the thought behind those words. When you mind your mind, okay, you will stress less, okay, and achieve more. Of course, that's what we'll be talking about today, and hopefully you'll be able to stay out of trouble, to whatever trouble it is that is showing up on the...
Wait. Okay, yeah, I think we need to qualify.
I'm just joking about
Not
that.
all trouble is bad.
I agree.
There's good trouble.
There we go.
And there is bad trouble.
There we go. And maybe we should start with that. How would you like people to remember you on this show? How would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm a troublemaker. No. Okay, so let's do the formal stuff. Patrick Shields. I'm beginning a new chapter in my life, actually, and something that's been brewing in my heart for many, many years. I introduced myself as an African industrialist. There's a difference between an industrialist, an entrepreneur, and a business owner. I won't go because that'll eat up all of our time today, just calling out the differences between those three. But I have a vision for this continent to reproduce myself, and all of the good stuff, if there is some good stuff to be reproduced, with a strong filter that keeps the junk and the trouble, reproduce the good things about me in as many young people's mind, young people on this continent as possible. That is why I introduced myself as an African industrialist, because I will do that, and I'm seeking to do that in the context of business and technology. The 38 years of experience in that domain of business and technology, anywhere from consulting to implementation to where I've landed here over the past decade of being a global executive of a multinational enterprise software company, where I'm focusing more on strategy, go-to-market strategy, knitting together business models of differing organizations in order to, have a profitable relationship is what I've spent the past 10 years doing on a global scale. And now my beloved Africa, is where my attention is lying. And that would be, if you say, how should people remember me? That's the beginning. I'm at the beginning of this chapter, but that's what I hope for the however many more years I have on this planet, that would be the memory that I can create for people from that introduction.
So if I hear Mr. Shields clearly, he is giving attention with intention to Africa and its flourishing into the future.
Well said. I like that. And the part that I like the most is intention. There was one of my early mentors in my faith is Dr. Miles Monroe, and I seem to remember seeing a picture or a photo somewhere of a certain somebody. I'm not going to call any names, Dr. Joshua. In a photo with Dr. Miles Monroe. And if I would have been knowledgeable back when I had the privilege of meeting him decades ago, I would have taken a picture as well, but I didn't. I wasn't as advanced and forward-looking in my thinking as the brother sitting next to me.
So guys, there's a reason why I'm laughing, because he knows and has noticed that the position and the posture that I've had in the photos with Dr. Miles is beyond someone who's just walking past. There clearly was a relationship, and Dr. Miles Monroe is indeed the mentor that I had the privilege to have helped me walk into the leader that I am today. And I'm grateful for his life. And,
oh man, yeah.
And purpose is so important, eh?
And that's why I brought it up, because you said attention with intention. And I immediately went to this thing that was injected in me, and you know what I'm about to say, where Dr. Monroe says, God is a God of purpose.
There we go.
And if you don't understand the purpose of a thing, you are bound to abuse it. And it applies to everything in life. It applies to ourselves, to our loved ones, our partners, our spouses, our children, our jobs. If we don't understand the purpose of a thing, we are destined to abuse it.
I think it's important that we also understand we cannot control everything.
Absolutely.
So just a minute ago, my mug spilled over.
And I'm glad it wasn't mine, because I'm enjoying my supreme.
Interestingly, I had my coffee before you arrived. Okay. So I decided to have water. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because whatever is inside you is what will eventually emerge. So, unplanned, my mug began to spill over. And when life pressures us, nothing else will show up than what is within.
I in a keynote I gave once, I think, and this is what happens, by the way, when the two of us get together. So buckle your seatbelts. I have no idea where this conversation is going, but it always ends up someplace fantastic. What I shared with that group was that, we are but sponges. And I think there's actually a couple of chapters in the book that deal with that.
Yes.
Where you treated that topic. We absorb whatever environment you put us into. We absorb what's there. Okay. And different from a mug, because a mug, whatever is there, when you tip it, it's coming out. Right? But we're sponges. As human beings, we're more like sponges. And the only way to get out of us as a sponge, what's in us, is to apply pressure and to squeeze.
Project Squeeze.
So the intent that I am looking at and the attention that I want to give is to create pressure, positive pressure on individuals. because I am in absolute disagreement with a lot of the identity projections that are given to us Africans. And when I say African, I mean whether it African American, Nigerian American, South African, this. And by the way, I think we started the conversation, but we didn't go far into it. The difference between ethnicity, race, and culture. And that there is a blended definition of those three that I use to say, this is my experience as an African. And it is a shared experience where the two of us can say, this experience. Not to the exclusion of anyone or any other people group. You know, in terms of anthropology, I love studying people groups. But there's something unique about the ethnic, racial, and cultural blend that makes us African. And it's a beautiful thing. But that people group, I think maybe because we're so spectacular, maybe because of our history that we don't even know about, of how great we were in ancient times, that maybe that was a threatening thing.
You know, as you're sharing this, I'm taking back to some conversations at breakfast while in the same hotel room with my mentor, Dr. Miles Monroe, and how we show up on the planet and serve. Because you are, people get to recognize you and sometimes feel threatened by you. So black is the color of the earth.
Yes.
And human. In other words, there is breath that everybody takes in. So human.
I like that. Yeah.
So there's a huge purpose tied to our presence.
I get you, brother. Yes.
That you cannot discountenance it.
Yes. But if you were convinced to discount it based on projections of what I just recently did a bit of a study on, you know, the iconoclast movements that have occurred in history, revisionist history, you know, and I've often said to myself, what if? What if those movements were not successful? What if true purpose and true identity can be squeezed out of us as sponges? Because I think it's innate in us. I say all of that to say, as a sponge, if we can create the right positive environmental pressures for people, and this is why the book is so valuable to me. When you squeeze, even if you as a sponge have been in a bucket of dirty water, what happens is, before that sponge can be clean and useful for even wiping this up, you've got to squeeze out the dirty water. But you need the right pressure to squeeze that dirty water out.
So there's a purpose in pressure.
There's purpose in pressure.
Yes.
There's another element that's important, is notice as this is drying, it's leaving no stain. By the time we finish this interview, if you come into this room and you look at that table, there will never be any evidence whatsoever that there was a water spill there. Why? Because the water was clean.
I like that.
So the element of clean water, to take that sponge and you dunk it, is necessary, because when the dirt comes out, you need something clean to go in.
Profound.
Also, our salvation experience is
amazing. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, in the context of business and technology, let's start with business. There's a lot of dirty water that we have been dunked into, such that we believe that it's the ultimate reality of how business is conducted and how business is done. We don't have exposure to what clean water looks like.
In other words, if a bird that has been in a cage for so long is set free,
It comes back to the cage.
it actually feels uncomfortable living a life outside the cage.
It will seek out the cage. Even if it leaves the cage where it's spent, it's going to find a cage, something that resembles that cage in order to find comfort. So we want to shine the light on cages that have been established in the minds.
Amazing stuff. I love that.
Yes.
I love that. Let's cascade into your favorite chapter in Mind Your
Man,
Mind.
I was hoping you were going to ask. We don't have time, brother, because I don't have a favorite. There's 3 that stand out. There's 2, 6, and 15.
Okay, chapter 2, something great.
So that one, you know, I think I'm glad that we talked about the sponge thing, because that is essentially the backdrop of something great for me. Beautiful things, fabulous things, great things don't just happen, right? It takes the sum total of all of our experiences in order to chisel away life experiences into something great. We can't stop at one experience. They're all interweaved. That's why you can find someone who has had a very traumatic experience that can actually be turned into a cause. But if you
Wow.
can't escape the trauma of the experience, you build your camp there. Instead of it being a milestone, it becomes a camp. And then you erect a temple there, and then you begin to pay homage there, and it's the place that you dwell. Where there's a whole destination and a road towards something amazing. If you can recognize that experience as simply a building blocks on its way to something great.
You know,
And by the way, the first line of the table on the second page of that chapter starts with what? Those little habits. And
X
what's yours?
plus Y equals habits.
And what's yours?
Something
Hey, Josh.
great. It's a
Josh,
great
it's
day.
a great day.
Guys, I am so grateful for this distinguished gentleman and his presence. I won't say presence, presence. And he's become a great believer in what I do, to the point that Africans of the Mind is embarking on an intellectual immortality project for his organization. And one of the things we are looking forward to doing is to focus on the theme, flourish or fold. And that's part of what he's been talking about. And can I tell you guys how I met this gentleman? I was in his estate, okay, visiting an exec who I happened to have a relationship with. And I was walking into the clubhouse.
You were sitting. I was walking.
Okay, yeah. I was sitting in the clubhouse and he was walking past. And we simply said hello to each other. And I responded, I am grateful to be alive, when he asked me how am I doing. In other words, you need to understand the power of intention. Because when you give attention with intention, okay, a lot of things shifts. And that's what I'm getting from you, sir. That's what I'm getting from you. And people can learn something profound from that. You're very intentional.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
I see it in your words. I see it in your actions. And I hear it in the way, you communicate, the way you show up.
There's something that I want to call out to our introduction. Since, and you did a good job in telling it, but there's an element that you left out, which was my response to. Because think about it. What do we always do? we say, hello, how are you?
Yes.
And what's the typical response? I'm fine. So by intent, by choosing not to say, I'm fine, my brother, or all good, or I'm lekker, no. He responds, I'm grateful to be alive. And I was actually, my expectation was a rote response. I literally was on my way past him, and what did I do? I stopped in my tracks. I turned around and with intent said, I need to know who this brother is. That was how we met. That's the intent. That was why we met. And that was the beginning of a fantastic brotherhood and friendship.
I need to say this to you. You are the very first person I am going to ask to do a second interview with on this podcast. Because this conversation has literally taken the entire breadth and depth of the time we have. And I recognize that also. So I'm going to begin to close,
But before you close,
yes.
Let's quickly discuss chapter 6.
Yes.
Two seconds.
So just to begin to wrap it up, one of his other favorite chapters in Mind Your Mind is chapter 6. It's titled Finding Flow. Look closely at the present you are constructing. It should look like the future you are dreaming.
You talk about intention. One of the biggest enemies of progress is wasted time. Time and activities that are not connected to your purpose, right? I had a conversation with someone that lost sleep over a topic. And it was one of those, hey, how are you? And I was, I didn't sleep, and what's wrong? Are you okay? What's wrong? Well, I didn't sleep. I was up all night thinking about this situation. Well, you want to talk about it? I mean, I got big ears, So we talked about it, unpacked it, and at the end of when I gave some general advice, we didn't have a whole lot of time to really unpack it, but I walked away from that conversation with a bit of heaviness because the person was wrapped up and tied up into a mental knot with activities that had nothing to do with what this person was about or the future that they were trying to construct. They were bringing these ancillary things and making it so much a part of their right now that it was taking over. It was like weeds growing everywhere in their minds, such that there was no room for purpose. And I'm sorry, but so my best sleep comes when I have labored in what I know to be my purpose. I sleep like a baby. Because I feel like, here's another lesson. Only focus look at 3 things that are important. Spend all of your time on the number 1 item. Even if you don't get to number 2, it's time well spent because you've spent time on what's most important, right? And that's how I was saying to myself, this person. It seems significant, but it was really false evidence appearing real. It was a fear thing, and the fear kept that person awake the whole time because the false evidence was appearing real, which is the exact opposite of the theme of chapter 6. Look into your future, but live today based on the reality that you see in the future and dismiss any and every thought and anything lingering in your mind that is a boat anchor to you being able to do that. Now, let me do my close and then you close. In America, football is big. We call it this, I think in other parts of the world they call it gridiron. But it's American football, and we have different levels. There's the professionals, which is known as the National Football League, or the NFL. And then there's college football, which is the incubator for the talent that goes into the NFL. But anyway,
Yes.
there was a coach of, I think it was the, Nick Saban, I think is his name. He's coach for University of Alabama. One of the winningest college football teams in the history of the collegiate leagues. They have a legendary program there, and he's one of those, I think it's Nick Saban. I speak under correction, so if someone sees the podcast and they go, no, man, he wasn't coaching Alabama, what are you talking about? Please just post who the coach was for University of Alabama. Anyway, he said something in when they were doing a pregame build-up to the championship game of him talking to his players. And he said to his players, never let anyone with dirty feet walk through your mind.
Woo!
That thing stayed with me.
That is profound.
And my good friend had allowed someone with dirty feet to walk through their mind. And those dirty footprints are what kept them awake all night. So chapter 6
Wow.
was one of my favorite, but we're not going to go to 15 because it's time.
And because we have agreed we're gonna have a second interview with Patrick Shields, I'd like to begin to leave you with one actionable activity that comes from chapter 6. It says, accept it, whatever that it is in your life, instead of wishing it were different today. In other words, embrace the messiness, okay? And the ambiguity of life, rather than seeking simplistic solutions to complex problems. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we're going to pull the curtain, but we will be back with this distinguished gentleman. And for the first time, we're going to have a second interview with one person. Never happened in the history of Mind Your Mind, the podcast. And on that note, it has been a pleasure chatting with my friend. Thank you so much for honoring us with your time.
Yes, sir.
I'm grateful. Thanks to our partners at Organo, Joshua at Mind Institute, Africa. He had the Supreme, and of course the link below this recording will guide you on how to order if you would like to order Mind Your Mind, or get to find out how you can order some of this healthy beverage that really helps you mindfully live, flourish, flow. And like I usually like to close every podcast, for us to have a better world, it really truly needs to begin by having a better brain. Bye for now.
All right, my brother. All right, man. I need to hit the trails.